Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. We have Jack Daly with us. Jack is a special person who has been in sales for quite a while, for 33 years to be precise. Fought cancer, fought various Ironmans. He sent me some answers to the questions that I have for a book that I'm putting up together. I was quite impressed. So you guys are in for a treat today. This pod is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start or scale your podcast, go to podpire.com. Jack, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Oh, Charles, that opening question we could spend hours on if we're not careful. My first entrepreneurial experience was 12 years old. That was my first company I built. And then when I put that aside, between the ages of 26 and 46 years old, I built 6 companies that went nationwide in the United States, sold a couple to Wall Street. And then I lost my passion for running a business, and I enjoyed it for those 20 years. But at 46, I said, I want to try something else, and got into the professional speaking business, helping people all over the world scale their businesses. And while I was at that, since my kids had grown up and left home and led their own lives, I decided to become an endurance athlete and ran 100 marathons, 15 full Ironmans, a bunch of half Ironmans. And here I am at 75 years old, and I'm still flying all over the country and making a difference in people's lives, both professionally and personally.
What did you learn doing 100 marathons? Wasn't like three enough?
So that's a good question to ask. My bucket list said to run a marathon. And so I wanted to run it under 4 hours, and I missed running it under 4 hours by about 17 minutes. So 3 months later, I ran my second one and went under four. So we would think that would be enough. But I reflected on it and said, having a goal to run a marathon each year would keep me in good physical shape. So I'm going to run one each year. Well, I was running one a year for 10 years, and they were all in California except one, which is where I live. And my fourth Los Angeles marathon, a guy ran by me in the race with a shirt, and on the back it was printed, I ran a marathon in all 50 states. So I caught back up with him and said, tell me about this 50 state thing. And he said, there's a club on the internet running a marathon in all 50 states. So I went home and I looked it up and I said, well, that's a good bucket list. I'll run a marathon in all 50 states. And then I started building friends and seeing them at races. And one of them said, are you doing the continents? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, there's a club on the internet, marathoners running a marathon in all 7 continents. So I said, well, I'll put that on my bucket list. Now, I had some favorite marathons, and New York, Boston, that I'd run multiple times. And all of a sudden, I was at about 80 some marathons. And I go, well, heck, I'm close to 100 marathons. I ought to run 100 marathons. So I ran my 100th marathon in Athens, Greece, on the marathon that was the very first ever. And then I said, that's enough. So now my answer is different or the same as yours. And that is, well, why am I going to run another one? 101, 103. I think it sounds pretty sexy to be 100. So I'm done.
Right. Love the roundness of the number. And I mean, I could answer that question too. I have 3 Ironmans now, but just for the sake of getting to 10, I want to get to 10. I guess that's the common theme with us maniacs, quote unquote. I want to know though your tips for running without busting your knees for 100 marathons. It's quite impressive.
Yeah, I just had a physical therapy appointment this morning, and my therapist said, she's in her 20s and she's going, I have knee issues and I've only run 2 marathons. And I said, well, first of all, there's no only in front of the word marathon. If you ran a marathon, never use the word only. But she's in her 20s and has some knee soreness. I've never had knee issues. But here's one of the tips I would tell you. listen to your body. So, an awful lot of people will push themselves, and their body's telling them, hey, enough at this stage. So I would listen to my body. So an awful lot of people that are in endurance races, they've got all of the technology attached to them, and they're trying to hit certain marks on the technology. And I'll have a Garmin watch on, but it doesn't matter if the Garmin watch is saying I'm falling off my pace time. Maybe my body isn't ready for that pace time today. So light on the feet, and pace myself according to what my body's telling me.
Love that. Then where did the Ironmans came in? Because that's another beast right there. Where did you discover the sport?
So that's really funny because I was running a company and I had thousands of employees. And one of the people in my home office that was an employee was an Ironman. And she came to me and she said, with all the marathons you're doing, you'd be perfect for an Ironman. And I said, well, not exactly. I don't know how to swim. And at 58 years old, I did not know how to swim. And the Ironman starts with a 2.4 mile swim or 3.6K swim, however you want to measure it. It's a long way, right? And it's on the clock, as you know, because you've done 3. And I said, so I don't know how to swim. And she goes, well, then go find out how to swim. You hire a coach and take lessons and practice. And so the swimming was cool. Once I learned how to swim, it's the shortest distance in the Ironman. It's the least amount of time in the Ironman. So, and it starts with the swim. So then I just needed to get a tri bike, and practice again. If you're going to do 180K, you're going to have to get your butt used to sitting in the seat. And then the running, well, I probably ran more marathons than all the other Ironmen. So that was a breeze.
There you go.
And then you do one, why not do another? And then all of a sudden, why not do one on all the continents except for Antarctica? So I've got, in my 15 Ironmans, I've done all the continents except for Antarctica.
So what's missing for Antarctica? Um, I mean, they don't have an Ironman there, but they must have like a 40K or something.
So I've run the marathon in Antarctica. So there's
You
2 of
did.
them. One you go by plane, one go by boat. So I've run that one, but they're not. Antarctica is not built for a bike, and it's certainly not built to swim. so I don't think there'll be any Ironmans being raced on Antarctica.
Yeah, well, these Nordic people, they do cold swims. Now a 4 kilometer swim in the cold water, that is something. 40 minutes in the cold, in the brutal cold, even with a sweatsuit, that would be interesting because the entrepreneurs in me is like, let's build it. If there's no Ironman there, we're gonna build one. And it's gonna be a
Hey
mountain
Charles,
bike.
look, I agree. And here's the deal. I was disappointed that Antarctica wasn't that difficult. I expected more snow. I expected to be colder. So the following year, I ran the Polar Circle Marathon in Greenland. And you want to talk about cold? It was 25 degrees below zero. The ice base for the whole 42K, and the first 10K was snow to the knees. And it's my number 1 favorite marathon because when I was out there, I'm going, I am blessed to be this old and have the time and the money to be here and healthy enough to take it to the finish line. It's a great, great marathon.
Yeah, and if you have snow up to the knees, you're like, yeah, I might die here. And the mind is like, how the heck am I gonna get through this? So what's your trick when, I don't know, your gut is messing with you, or you're getting like really tough muscle cramps when things are going really bad in your races? What's the mindset that kicks in?
Yeah, so the mindset is figure it out. figure it out. That is a motto of mine. Figure it out. That motto exists in my businesses. Three of my businesses were in the residential mortgage lending business. And when interest rates would go up, double, triple, the competition would say, no one's going to do a mortgage loan at X interest rate. Well, somebody's going to need one. And if you all leave, they'll come to me. And so some of my best business was done when I had cramps in my business. And if you get cramps, you rub them out. I can remember my first marathon. The reason I didn't go under 4 is because I got blisters at mile 10. I never had blisters. Then I started to run differently to avoid the blisters. And then by mile 17, my right leg cramped. I went to rub it out and my left leg cramped. And now both are cramped. So I'm on the ground and the ambulance truck is telling me get in and we'll take you to the finish line. And I said, no, I'm not taking the truck to the finish line. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out. And so I rubbed them out and then eventually got up and walked and then eventually jogged. And by the time the race was over, I was running again.
Oh
Look,
man,
you know this, Charles. The majority of endurance race is run 6 inches at a time. It's
right.
the 6 inches between your ears.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, the mindset, and it's quite funny, the proverbial truck that will take you to the finish line. I once did 10 kilometers swim in Cancun, and I was the slowest because I've never swum that distance, and I was going counter current and I was going off course. And 2 or 3 times there was this boat that came near me and they were like, come on up, come on up. It's gonna be better, you're tired and all. I was like sunburned. I did like 6 hours or something like that. Whether by jellyfish or by the sun, it was like third degree or something. It's pretty bad. And yeah, I never went up the fucking boat, like I was like, dude, you have you have the guts to say that to me, right? Like 5 hours in that race, and you want me to come up on your goddamn boat? No, that's not gonna happen. Even if they're gonna unclose the race line for me for the boats to come in again because they had to close a passage. It was like I'm gonna finish that thing, and so I did. Like how much times in one's lifetime, in an entrepreneur's lifetime, does that proverbial truck or boat come next to you and is like, hey, come on up, here's the easy way.
So with all of those races between you and me, here's what I can tell you about me. I never raced a race that I didn't want to quit at some point. And then you got to go inside and have that conversation with yourself that says, how bad do you want this? How bad do you want it? And hey, pain is temporary. Anytime I've been in a dental chair and they're messing with my mouth, there's pain, but when they're finished, it's gone. So it's temporary. Figure it out. When I raced on the East Coast in West Virginia, the airport that I was going to go to and fly home to California was in Washington, D.C. at Dulles Airport. When I finished the race, my ankles were in such pain, I had to be wheelchaired onto the 2 planes that it took for me to get home. And people are looking at me because I have my finish marathon shirt and my race medal on, and they're wheelchairing me through the airport onto the plane. But the race is up here. It's up in the head.
Oh, Jack, you crazy man. You're like all sweaty, you didn't even shower, and you're taking 2 plates. Oh, that's beautiful right there. Yeah, I mean, I limped my way to the finish line of my first Ironman in Cozumel. My ankle was totally destroyed. My knee too. The disbalance you're talking about. Oh, one ankle goes, then the knee goes on the other side. To balance it out. And yeah, I literally limped my way. People thought I was a zombie or something when I finished, but I did it, and that stays with you for a lifetime. Now, you say
Absolutely.
you've managed 1,000 employees. Um, How hard was that? What kind of business hardships did you face over the years, and how did you resolve those?
Yeah, so one of my companies had 2,600 salespeople, and that we were operating out of 100 locations in the U.S. But the key here is how many do you actually personally manage, right? So the span of control for any manager, I would tell you, is about 15 people. So as long as I can manage 15 regional people that are in charge of a region, and then those region people could have 15 managers managing different parts of their territories. All of a sudden, there's an org chart that's protecting me from being 2,600 people. I have responsibility for them. I have responsibility for the vision. I have responsibility for the culture to create an environment where they want to excel. That I can do for the whole 2,600. We'll hit these marks. But in terms of day-to-day interactions and feeling individual pains with each of 2,600, that doesn't exist in my world. I've got less than 15 people that I need to get invested in to that degree. So every year I would give my top managers an outside third party administered stress test, and we bring the outsider in to discuss it with us around the conference room. And one of my managers one year said, can you give us some perspective on Jack? Because Jack is the lowest stressed guy every year when we take this measurement tool. And there was a pause, and then the facilitators looked at him and he said, Jack doesn't get stress, he gives stress. And what he was saying is he sets a high mark and then he does it along with you. And as long as you can be the model and he's pulling it off, then the rest of us can say, well, if he can do it, I can do it. So the other thing is, look, Charles, you do three Ironmans. You did 3 Ironmans, and you know why you did the second and the third? Because you enjoyed the first. And so as long as you're enjoying whatever you're doing, the stress is way down.
Yeah, I think the word enjoying doesn't ring for the second one, definitely. The first one was nice, was a half. The third one was fun in Tremblant. Did you do that one, by the way, Mont Tremblant? Mont Tremblant,
In where?
the Mont
Montre
Tremblant one.
Tremblant?
Yeah, yeah. Of
Yeah.
course you did.
Very enjoyable. I think it's one of my favorites.
There you go. Yeah, me too. It was amazing. So beautiful. And wow, that was a
Although I
great
will
one.
tell you, Cozumel is great. The water is so clear.
Yeah.
The bike is all the way around the island. And the run is right through the bar district, and I'm not even sure they know we're doing a race, but they're cheering us.
Yeah. No, it was great. I might redo Cozumel, just the sun, and I probably hit under train, but yeah, no, you're right. Now you seem to have been at that mortgage company for a year. So how much of a supercharge was that for what you learned there?
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, the mortgage company I saw on your LinkedIn was 1 year. Platinum and wait, Fleet Mortgage Group from 92 to
Fleet. Yeah, I just
93.
stayed 1 year. Yeah, the reason for that is that when I went there, it was owned by a major bank.
Okay.
And I said to the bank, your profile of what you're looking for is an out of the box entrepreneur. I'm not sure that you guys can handle one like that, because you're a bank. But if you start to put me into organizational handcuffs, then I won't be staying long. So the bank said, no, we'll give you free autonomy. And then when I went, they didn't know what free autonomy was. So look, if I'm not going to be happy doing what I'm doing, like I don't need a job. I've never needed a job. I pick careers and then be the best at that career. So I just said back to the speaking business.
Right. So speaking has been your core. Did you ever had a money number? Because it seems that you might have cracked that number quite early in your career.
Yeah, let's just put it this way. Yeah, the answer is yes. I had a money and a net worth number that I put down in writing at 13 years old and said, here's where I want to be at 30. And what do I need to get to that number? What do I need to do? And then followed the discipline. So that number I made before I was 30. And at that stage, if I wanted to quote unquote retire, that traditional word where you're not employed, I could have done that from the age of 30 on. But you know, I don't work for money. I I I get paid, but making money isn't what gets me up in the morning. Having fun and doing something with results gets me up in the morning. And the more it can be fun and enjoyable, the better my results, which then makes it more money.
So nowadays your purpose speaking, I see some YPO there. That's like what lights you up, a bit of golf. What else?
Um, so my bucket list is a big item. So if you went to my website at jackdalysales.com, I have over 400 items on my bucket list. 79% are complete. And it's not a list you want to complete because by definition, if the list is over, you die. So I'm always adding things onto the list. And, you mentioned golf. So one of the bucket list items was to play the top 100 golf courses in the United States. Last August, I completed the last 4. So I have that one done. Another thing on my bucket list was to visit all the US presidents' libraries. And so I visited all of those, and that bucket is done. So let's talk about what's not done. The ceremonial torch in the Olympics on my bucket list is to carry the torch during the Olympics. Another bucket list item is to meet a president in the United States, but not on a tour, a personal visit, and to fly with him on Air Force One. And people will look at me and go, well, you're putting things on your bucket list that, you're not going to be able to do. Well, you could have said that about a lot of things. And so why not? Let's put it out there and see what happens. I said I was going to fly a jet fighter plane. And a YPO member saw that on my bucket list and called me up and said, have you done it? And I said, no. He had a jet fighter plane he bought from the US Air Force. And he met me. We went up. He flew the plane. I sat behind him. And then all through our headset, he said, so are you ready? And I said, ready for what? And he said, I'm going to pass the controls over to you. And I flew a jet fighter plane with no flying instructions. I mean, so why not sit down as a human and just say, what's going to turn your jets on? What could you want to do? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And start knocking things off your list.
That's quite amazing. And I'm seeing a bunch of items there. I guess the most significant one last year for you was fighting cancer. How did that go?
So my doctor, so stage 3, malignant melanoma, top of my head, operated in the first month of the pandemic when we're all in lockdown. I'm in the hospital, kind of the worst place to be. And they took the top of my head off about the size of the palm of my hand. And then it came back in my neck 8 months later. And then I had to go through 54 weeks of treatment. And now I'm cancer free. But here's what the doctor said afterwards. He said, there's 3 reasons why you kick cancer's ass to the curb. One is there's advancement in science and medicine. And today we have so many more tools that we can help you with. So the advancement in medicine was one. The second, he said, I haven't had a patient in 50 years that's your age and is in such good physical shape. So you were able to take all of this prescriptive things and it didn't slow you down. But he said the third reason was more powerful than the first two, and that is I never recognized I had cancer. What I mean by that is I didn't sit in a corner and cower. I didn't stay up at night worrying whether I was going to die or not. I got up and lived a big full life every single day. And he said, no one at this hospital would ever know that what you dealt with. I mean, I'm in the cancer center and everybody that's there is getting their treatments for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm there too, getting mine. And I'm sitting there wearing an Ironman finisher shirt or a marathon finisher shirt. The rest of them are looking like they're dying. And everyone's coming in with someone else to hold their hand, a spouse, a relative, a friend. I never had anybody come with me on any one of those times. I'm just going over there and get my cancer treatment, and then I'm going to go out for a run. I mean, let's get on with life here. So that attitude is what prevailed.
So inspiring. Yeah, you're a machine, Jack. Do you want to live forever if you would have the possibility?
So on my bucket list, and it's been there since I was 28, is to live to 125. And people used to laugh at me when I said it. And at 28 years old, I said this: if I take good care of myself physically, and till the age of 75, by that time they'll have science to figure out how to take me. But if I hand medicine, if I hand the doctors in the medical world, if I hand them a 75-year-old beat up guy who did a bunch of drugs and smoked and didn't take care of himself physically, well, they're not going to work on me. They're not going to inject the science. So here I am, just last month, turned 75, and my doctors are telling me, man, you're more fit than a guy's in his 40s.
Yeah,
So
you look like it.
So combine taking care of yourself physically with how I am wired in the 6 inches between my ears. And I think I got a great shot at lasting longer than most anyone else. And you know what? As long as we're enjoying the time we're on the planet, that'll be worthwhile. If I find myself where, hey, being older is not going to be any more fun, all I'm doing is sitting around going to doctors and being in pain, well, I just as soon move on and see what's ahead after this life.
There you go. Where can people find out more about you, Jack?
The easiest thing to do is go to my website, and I have 2 of them. One of them is called jackdalysales.com, and the other one's called jackdalyslifebydesign.com. And the Life by Design is based on my most recent book. It's my 10th book, and it's called Jack Daly's Life by Design. And it walks people through a lot of what we've talked about here today, Charles, about how do you take on a bucket list? How do you race these races? How do you take care of yourself physically? How do you make the money you want to make in the life and the life you want to lead?